We invest like the banks. What I mean by that is that we buy mortgages, buy notes, and we collect interest and principal just like the banks. And this is something very unique because it puts you in a position that you're the lender, you're not the borrower. So when you're the lender, you have more advantages, I would say, than the borrower. Because whenever a note becomes a non-performing note, we decide what the next step is.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Real Estate Rundown and joining us for another episode here in 2021. We're glad to be with you guys. We're going to call this episode Invest Like a Bank. And in this episode, Shaunn Jones, William Rodriguez, and myself are going to discuss mortgage note investing. Their company, Quotegrage, is based in California, and they do something that's super special. These guys are also fellow podcasters. You can find them at Cash Flow Generation, but you're going to want to watch them right here on the Real Estate Rundown. So check back with us, follow this episode. You're going to get a lot of knowledge. Hey everybody, welcome to the Real Estate Rundown. My guests today are William Rodriguez and Shaunn Jones. Guys, welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well.
Happy New Year.
So, yeah, we made it through 2020, right? We're into 2021. Things are going to be different. You know, the thing is, guys, as we know, millennials got a bunch of really cool words that growing up I didn't have, right? Like this whole thing called house hacking, right? When I grew up, you were just broke. You were so broke, you needed a roommate, right? They call it house hacking like it's some sort of fancy thing. Guess what the word was in 2020? Pivot. We called it a beatdown. We called it your ideas are not working, you know? But hey, we got done pivoting. We're going into 2021. You guys do something special with what you do at your company, and I really want to hear what you guys are doing. So let's just jump right into it, guys. You guys are doing mortgage note investing. Tell me about that. Tell me what that's all about.
Yeah, so we invest like the banks, essentially. What I mean by that is that we buy mortgages, buy notes, and we collect interest and principal just like the banks. We buy both performing and non-performing. Right now, we're building up our portfolio. Like you know, we just started a podcast and we just launched our YouTube channel as well. And this is something very unique because it puts you in a position that you're the lender, you're not the borrower. So when you're the lender, you have more advantages, I would say, than the borrower. Because whenever a note becomes a non-performing note, we decide what the next step is.
Yeah.
So would you be guys considered hard money lenders? Or, I mean, are you guys competing out there with the bank at that level, you know, 3, 4, 5%? What is your guys' niche?
No, we're not, wouldn't be considered hard money lenders. We are buying these assets from small banks, from hedge funds. And you know, it's a different place to be in because we have that security of being in control of the asset, but they're still that homeowner. We don't have to worry about tenants and toilets. We're just worried about collecting our principal and interest monthly. So we're not hard money lenders because we're not, you know, lending out our own cash, and no, we're not playing at the Chase Bank level yet. But
and for those of you that are listening to this podcast, you will be glad to hear that Shaunn is not a hard money lender because he's a rather large gentleman that if he had to collect from you, ladies and gentlemen, it would be ugly. Okay.
Very ugly.
The end of that stick. Now, I'm sure, Shaunn, your mama says you're just a sweetheart. You're the nicest boy ever, but I wouldn't want you to have me for money, right? Let's just put that out there. So explain to me, why would a bank want to sell a note?
Well, there's different reasons why they sell a note. Essentially, that's what they do. They buy and they sell. They buy at 20 cents, 30 cents on the dollar, and then turn around and sell it to smaller banks for 50 cents on the dollar. Okay. They're kind of, in a sense, made a quick flip, as you could call it.
Right.
Sometimes they hold the notes to get the cash flow. right? And then once they want to do other things or lend some more, they clear out their books and they sell it off.
Yeah, most of these banks actually they do make a profit up front because we've all heard of something called points. So up front they make their points and then they collect payments for a while. They have a number that they like to be in a sweet spot. So once they collect what they want to collect, then they sell it off. And in some cases, depending on how healthy the bank is or not healthy the bank is, they may need to clear their books. And in some cases, like Will said, they just want to clear their books because they want to shift their money somewhere else.
Sure.
Or shift our money somewhere else because they're using the money that we deposited into their bank.
I hear you there. That's why you always see the trailer show up on the empty lot when they're going to put a new bank in, right? They're setting up the deposits. They're getting the people to open the accounts. And then once they have a certain amount of money, then they can start lending because they have to have that certain margin to cover what they're being gifted from the Federal Reserve. So, the reality is, we all get that part, but walk me through it, guys, from the standpoint that your phone rings or you've made the contact and the bank says, hey, I want to sell a $100,000 house. Walk me through that process of what happens in your world so I can get a better understanding of what you guys actually do and how you secure that and what you do with it and how you profit from that.
Yeah, as we're making these contacts, we have people that'll send us tapes or what we call tapes. They're basically spreadsheets of loans. So we'll go through and see what we like from that. Some cases we have to buy the whole tape. So it just depends on who we're dealing with. And from that, how we profit is we're buying it at a discount. We never buy it at the full price of, what the value of the note is. We also look at what the value of the actual property is. Although we're buying the note, we want to know what the asset or the collateral is worth. So we're buying it for sure less than what the collateral is worth and less than what's owed on the note. The reason they do that, because like I said, they've already made their profit that they want to make. So now they can afford to take if it's a performing note, they can afford to take 10 to 15% discount. If it's non-performing, they're not making any money anyway. So they just want to get rid of that thing.
Right. So if you were to walk me through, let's say that on the tape, there's this one particular property you like. It's $100,000 note. Mm-hmm. I'm going to assume that you're going to want to see $130,000, $140,000 asset value behind that. Right.
Or more. Yes.
Yeah.
And if the note is there at $100,000 outstanding balance on the note and it's at 4% or 5%, what do you buy that for?
We're probably looking at about 10 to 15% discount. We also run our numbers to see what our profit margin is.
Okay.
Because if the interest rate is 4%, now we have to look at what do we need to buy this note at for it to be profitable for us as well.
Right. So, no, and that's how we do things in the apartment world, right? We start with what the rents are and we work backwards to see if we can afford to build them. Right. Because if we can't get the rent that we need, if you guys can't get the income that you need, it doesn't matter if it's a $100,000 note backed by a $300,000 asset. If it's not profitable, it's not profitable. Right.
Makes sense, yes.
And so I totally get that. So you're buying it for $90,000. We're going to assume you mentioned 10 to 15%. So $85,000 to $90,000. And what is it that you're wanting that to do? Are you wanting to then hold that and collect those payments? Or are you wanting to find somebody to sell that back to at $100,000? What is it that you would do with something like that?
I think it just depends on the strategy and our investor. Sometimes we could acquire the note and again, just flip it, sell it to somebody else.
Sure.
Or we could have a hold strategy for like about 2 years, then sell it off, or just keep it in our books.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So if it's a solid performing note, then we may just want to hold on to it.
Sure. So do you guys have a pool of investors that you're working with that they're looking for a set return and then you're making a spread on that as well? Right. Or so you guys are doing several things. You're looking for more investors because you want to introduce them to the world of, hey, it's, Shaunn and Will taking care of your money for you. We've got asset-backed properties or asset-backed notes. We've got, some of those other things. Non-performing, I can understand that very easily, in the sense that a non-performing note that's something where you're hoping you can get the collateral back, where you can get, or maybe work out something with them that, you're reassigning it.
Right.
And,
loan modification. Yep.
Yeah. Get some additional points up front, not ding their credit too bad. So that all makes sense to me, but the performing part of it, that was new to me. So I really appreciate you guys diving into that a little bit. So when you guys are looking, so you guys are multifaceted here, where you're looking for additional investors that are wanting to join your band of merry men. What is it that your investors are getting out of the deal? What is your value proposition to them?
Every investor is a little bit different. I mean, one thing we're working with our mentor on is a fund this year. So that's going to work completely different. As you know, with syndications, it's completely different than doing one at a time.
Right.
But normally they're looking at anywhere from, 5 to 8% return. It just depends on what they want. We go, if it's an individual investor, we're talking to them like, what's your motivation? What are you trying to do? Why are you looking to invest somewhere else? Are you, where are you pulling? It just depends on what their motivation is. And they say, hey, I have to get 6%. Okay, great. We need to make sure that we get them that return. If we sign a contract and we agree to that, we need to provide that 6% return.
Well, and Shaunn, that's so important. A lot of people don't take into consideration that their investors are their customers, right? They just look at it and they go, hey, you know what? Invest with me. I'll get you this return. They get the money. They don't call, they don't write, they don't send Christmas cards. And the next thing you know, it's been 6 or 8 or 12 months and the investors become, I don't know the disillusioned is the word, but they feel like they don't matter. Where understanding what the investor wants, because this is a journey for both of you guys, right? It's a journey for the investor and it's a journey for you and your company. And you guys need to make sure that you understand that. And I found that there's been a huge disconnect in the investing world in real estate with syndication and with other avenues like this, or like fix and flips or things like that, where people forget that the customer, you have two customers. You have the person you're trying to serve with the product you're trying to come up with, i.e. the note that you're buying, but you also have the customer, the investor, that you're trying to make sure that at the end of the day, they're happy with the Will and Shaunn experience, right? They're happy with this. They want to do it again. And I've seen where so many people have missed that part. They go in and they go, dude, I don't know what's wrong with you, man. I got you a solid return. I did everything I said, but you didn't connect. That's not what I wanted.
And that's a big part of it too. We recommend a book. It's not real estate related, but I think a lot of people in real estate would really benefit from it. It's by John Maxwell, called Great Leaders Ask Good Questions.
Yep.
And oftentimes
John Maxwell in that book, that is an excellent book. And that is a tremendous recommendation, because you're right.
We want to ask questions. We want to get to know them. We often push people away, right? Some people come to us. Last week, I had a guy that said, I got about, close to 100,000. I like this note thing, but I'm just not sure. I want to flip a house.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, what are you more comfortable with? He's like, well, I really like, flipping houses. That's kind of what I want to do. And I was like, if you're comfortable with that, just go right ahead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Didn't really pitch notes.
Yeah, because we've all had that experience where you got the right guy in the wrong deal. We've all had the wrong guy in the right deal too. But I think that's only a matter of perspective, right? I mean, I look at it and I go, man, what is it that makes my client feel like they're winning? And that's the connection to realize that yes, they are in the right deal. They're working with the right people. And like you said, Will, taking everybody's money isn't the best thing to do, because you're going to wind up with those people that, just because you were hungry to get the cash in the door and get started on that, you wound up with somebody that it didn't matter what you were going to do, you weren't going to satisfy them because they didn't feel safe. They didn't feel comfortable because, my buddy John, he does this, and my buddy Sam does that. So you guys are taking the right approach. You guys are taking a very similar approach to what I've used for a long time, is make sure that you understand your customer, make sure you understand your investor, and make sure that they understand what you're doing.
Right.
So Yeah. So you guys are really kind of cash on cash, kind of an investment, right? Am I getting
Correct.
that right?
Correct.
Yep.
So I'm investing with you. I come to you. I'm not. I don't like flipping houses. So I'm coming to you with the $100,000, and I'm jumping in the deal. And you're going to go buy some notes. You're going to pick some stuff up, and then I'm going to expect cash flow very soon after that. Is that correct?
Correct. Now, again, if we're looking at non-performing, that's where we need to find out where your comfort level is. We need to know what your motivation is. What are you trying to accomplish? You just want that secure monthly income, or do you want larger potential profits? Up front. What are you looking for? So with that, yeah, if we could be performing, it could be non-performing. It just depends on what your comfort level is.
Okay. So here's the thing that I'm getting from you guys that I'm understanding here is that there's really two different types of note investment. I would have only thought the note investment would have involved the non-performing, which then you've got to go through the foreclosure process, or you've got to do a workout. There's a lot of really tense feelings going on with that. But there's a whole nother side to this. It's really just a cash flow machine. That is just really about being able to put your investment into something that is an asset-backed investment that's already producing. It's spitting off cash. It's just a matter of standing there and you being the one to collect it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And there's a lot of people that we know personally in our investment group that only focus on performing notes.
Sure.
They don't touch non-performing.
Sure.
And there's other ones that just do non-performing, don't touch performing.
Well, listen. Well, we already touched on this, right? I mean, I'm 5'8", born and raised in Idaho, not really known for my street skills and getting people out of houses. So I'm going to stick with the performing notes too, right? I'm sure, right?
Unless you have a Shaunn in your business, right?
That's right, man. This whole thing about being self-performing, I'm going to be knocking on the doors going, "Excuse me, sir, would you mind if I helped you pack?" That's not going to be a real good deal. But the understanding of the strategy and the understanding of that whole other world, this is the reason why, my podcast is just called The Real Estate Rundown, because everything about real estate, just every day that I delve into it, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger because there's so much about that. But, it's so much more comforting to me. And I think you guys are the same way, and your investors are the same way, where you're sitting here with an asset-backed security. You're sitting there with something in, whether it's Temecula or Toledo or Toronto, you've got something that is asset-backed that regardless of what happens, if a performing note becomes a non-performing note, there's still something there of value.
Yeah. And our mentor's always saying, worst case scenario, you become a landlord.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And the funny thing is, guys, if we go back to 2008, you go back and look at 2008, it's not that everybody was losing their homes and becoming homeless. They were losing their homes because of some funky mortgages. Maybe they borrowed more than they should, but they still, the minute they got out of your house, they went and got in another house. Right. And so what the banks finally realized is, hey, let's quit kicking these people out. Let's just turn them into tenants. Let's just make them, let's just become the landlord. And then Chase Bank, they had huge management teams. They had, all these property management divisions they were creating. That makes a ton of sense as far as what you're able to do with how things work and the mindset, right? So now your downside isn't really a dark downside. Your downside is just, it's another step in the game. And while it didn't work out like we planned, the worst case scenario is we just got more profitable.
Correct. Correct.
Right?
Yeah, we're dealing with
asset. You're going to wind up with the asset back, and you're going to be in a better position because now you have the collateral and the principal that they paid in and all the other fees and everything. And now you're in a position to move that asset and make some additional money.
Right.
Yeah. Right now we're going through a foreclosure on a property in Kentucky. With COVID, it kind of slowed it down because we had to wait a couple of months before we can even get into court. And unfortunately, the homeowner passed away during COVID.
Wow.
So, so we're going to end up with the asset. And I've reached out to a realtor in that area, and she's like, "Yeah, I have a listing 2 doors down, and people keep calling me about that house, asking me, hey, is the house for sale?" And I'm like, "Well, it will be soon." So
yeah.
So
and that's the fantastic thing, right? You have an investment in something that is still of value. You've got an investment in something that, and it's funny because, people say in real estate, you only lose money when you sell an asset is of less value. We've seen it so many times where, the WorldComs of the world or the Enrons of the world, people lost millions of dollars that had nothing to do with it. And they still hold the paper. They still hold a stock certificate, but the company is gone. The company is bankrupt. Here you've got the asset that even if the person stops paying, passes away, you still have something that is of value, Right. So that's there. You've got so much security there. That's such an important point. So, guys, what is the biggest misconception about note investing that you're running into that you wish people understood better?
I just think people don't have. I guess they do. They do have access to the information, but they just can't connect the dots. They always see themselves as
sounds like everybody in the political field today, right?
For real, yeah. They can't connect the dots because they don't see themselves as a lender. They always see themselves as a borrower. So once they connect the dots, we help them connect the dots. They're like, oh, that makes sense. But then fall back into what they know.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes a ton of sense. And it's funny because it's not what we think the deal is. Right. It's what is being perceived that the deal is. Right. It's what the people that we're talking to, what are they hearing us say? What is their world experience that they're bringing to this investment that they look at it and go, oh, this makes a ton of sense. Or this is my prejudice to that. Right. I could see that I would probably, based on what I know or knew before this show, I would bring a little bit of prejudice to note investing because I don't know that I want to go out there and buy a house in Texas. But now that I understand it a little bit better, it seems pretty easy, especially, well, if I got a problem, I'm going to have Shaunn go get my money. So guys, tell me a couple, give me a success story. Give me one of your recent deals that's gone like just picture perfect.
Picture perfect. Do you have anything that's gone picture perfect?
I can't recall.
The reality of it all. All right.
So we are problem solvers, okay? That's how we make our money.
Honestly, the last couple of notes that we have, one is in near Detroit.
Okay.
And it's pretty simple. We purchased the note at the beginning. He missed a few payments, and it was just a quick phone call. And we just found out, he bought this house as a second house. He actually lives like a couple of doors down, and he was, putting a lot of money into this property. And after we talked to him, we're like, hey, just keep us up to date. What's going on? He just consistently continues to pay. He can say if there's any problem, he picks up a phone. Yeah. For us, that's easy. Because if we're in communication with the borrower, that's easy.
Oh man, everybody that's got a home loan would love to be able to pick up the phone and call the bank and say, hey, this is what's going on,
Right. Yeah. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't understand that. Because they're used to dealing with the big banks. They just they have a lot on their books, and they don't have the time to sit there and try to negotiate with everyone. But if you have a smaller company that owns your mortgage or something like that, pick up a phone and try to call them.
Yeah,
9 times out of 10, they're going to try to work with you.
Sure, because working with you is the quickest way to get back to the cash flow. That's why they have the asset.
Right. Yeah. Because we don't want the property. Honestly, we don't want to take your property.
Right.
We don't.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
So, for sure.
Well, guys, so tell me a little bit about you guys are starting a podcast as well. It's called Cash Flow Generation, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, tell me about that.
Yeah. So we started a YouTube channel about 2 months ago. And we knew that we needed to be on YouTube. But we've seen a lot of people go into podcasts and request, us being in a podcast. So we're like, man, we need to really look into, getting on a podcast, because it seems like a lot of people are really listening. They rather listen rather than watch. I'm more like a YouTube guy,
right?
But I saw the benefit on being in a podcast. So we launched 2 weeks ago. We already aired 2 episodes.
That's great.
And we're going to air another episode this week.
Yeah.
And I knew that it was time right when Amazon announced that they're going to go into the podcast.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, it's time.
And it's funny too, especially, I've been down here in Puerto Rico now for almost 3 years, and I've been doing a lot of Zoom meetings and a lot of, a lot of over the internet stuff. And that was kind of my next move was to get into the podcast. But it's so funny because everybody's like, oh yeah, we got to do a Zoom meeting. And I'm like, 2 years ago, I was like really, cutting edge, avant-garde. I'm a developer and I do Zoom meetings. You're a contractor and you know how to use Zoom. Everybody can use it, and they realize it's not that hard. And I'm not that special. But that's the thing too that I'm seeing though is there's so much information out there, and being able to tap into the flavor that you like. Being able to get information that resonates with you, that you can understand, or that you want to see the growth in your life. I think it really speaks to who you guys are, that you're out there providing information in the community of investors so that you can better understand them and they can better understand you and they can make better investment choices, which, that's kind of where I'm at with you guys, is the better investment community we can build, the more educated our investors are, whether they invest with me, whether they invest with you, whether they, go down to the guy down the street, as long as they understand what they're doing, we're going to have a better investment community. Because like you said, Will, we're not going to have people that are in the deal that they're like, well, I don't know that I know. I don't know that I want to do this. I don't know that I understand, which is never great advertising for that genre of investing, right?
Yeah. And in the word, it says a double-minded person is unstable in all their ways.
Yeah.
A lot of
right? Taken from the book of James.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, well, hey, you guys, here on the podcast, you need to check out Cash Flow Generation. That's where Reverend William drops knowledge all the time.
Wow, first,
Reverend.
When you're quoting the Bible, you kind of got to get some props for that, right? I mean,
it just flows naturally. So
that's serious. That's serious. So
once you check out our podcast, you'll see.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Well, guys, where else can we find you? We're going to find you on YouTube, on Cash Flow Generation. We're going to be able to find your podcast on Apple, zooming to the top here soon. Where else can we track you guys down at?
LinkedIn. That's where we make the most connections, is LinkedIn.
We're also on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook.
Yeah.
We're not too active there.
Yeah.
If you really want to connect with us
LinkedIn.
in a personal level, it's LinkedIn.
Okay. That sounds great. Well, hey, guys, I really want to thank you for stopping by and sharing with my audience here on the Real Estate Rundown. Guys, we really know that people like yourselves that are taking time to get to know your investors, that are making those kind of efforts to educate, to bring podcast knowledge to others. Guys, I wish you all the success in the world, and I know you'll have it because I can see that you guys have a heart for the people that you're working for, the customers you have on both ends of the deal. So, guys, thanks for coming by the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Hey, guys, so check out this episode and more on the Real Estate Rundown. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us in all the same places, too. But if you'll take a minute and give us a review, we'd love that. We're always looking to hear what you have to say about the show, ideas you have for the show, things like that. So please leave us a review right now on YouTube or Instagram or on LinkedIn. We'd love that. Thanks, guys, for joining the Real Estate Rundown. We'll see you soon.